Hello. Most of you will probably know me because of the hymns that I've been making with the help of my friend Ali Stranad. But I also used to make videos where I just talk about stuff on this channel because this channel is mostly just for me to have fun. And so sometimes I like to just make videos about fun stuff that I want to talk about. The cat is still dragging your toy around. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about the concept of Ma'at in Chemeticism and as well just in the field of Egyptology, because it's something that a lot of people who are new to the study of Egypt tend to ask about because they don't fully understand it, or maybe they do fully understand it but they aren't sure if they do. Ma'at is often described as the concept of order and balance and harmony in the universe, and that is true. It's a very simplified way of thinking about the concept of Ma'at. The issue that a lot of people run into when they start to study what Ma'at is that they're not sure if Ma'at is a concept or a goddess, and the answer is yes, she is both. Ma'at the goddess is obviously a female goddess who carries the feather of truth atop her head, which is usually an ostrich feather. And this is the same feather that is used to weigh the heart in the famous weighing of the heart ceremony that happens after death. As a goddess, she represented all of the things that the concept of Ma'at also represents, so that being order, justice, harmony, and truth. Ma'at as a goddess was not especially worshipped in ancient Egypt in the way that we would think of a god being worshipped, meaning that she didn't have any temples, but she did have some shrines, at least I think from the New Kingdom, and she was often depicted in temples alongside other gods, and she was also an offering that the pharaohs made to the gods, and this is more in the realm of Ma'at as a concept. Ma'at as a concept is more of a otherworldly force that dictates a lot of what happens in our world. And so it is the force of harmony and order that must be maintained through good actions and a strong ka, or a vital heart, you could say. It was the pharaoh's sacred duty to uphold Ma'at so that Egypt would remain stable for all of his years. And so Ma'at is this stability. It is a force that fights against Isfet, or the force of chaos, which I might make a video about later. In the book The Gods and Symbols of Ancient Egypt by Manfred Lurker, he describes Ma'at as the personification of the basic laws of all existence, embodying the concepts of law, truth, and world order. Another important aspect of Ma'at as both a concept and a goddess is that she is a goddess of truth as well, and when also studying Ma'at, most people will come into the 42 laws of Ma'at, but I don't really want to get into that in this video because it's a more complicated subject and it's very, very long to read all of the 42 laws. But the most important thing that you need to know about the 42 laws of Ma'at is that they're not indelible laws put down like the commandments of the Bible. Instead, the 42 laws of Ma'at are actually extremely personalized, and each person who was buried and had the 42 laws of Ma'at inscribed in their tomb or in the Book of the Dead papyrus that they were buried with, these laws were personal to their personality and to their place in life, as well as their job and what they were doing. For example, the temptations of a farmer are not going to be the same temptations of a priest. A priest may have temptations to use his power to sway the pharaoh to enact some sort of law, whereas a farmer might have a temptation to steal his neighbor's cattle. And so, for example, you'd have a law of not stealing, so for the farmer you would say, I have not stolen my neighbor's cattle, but for a priest you might say, I have not embezzled funds from the temple. The hieroglyphs that make up Ma'at are U2, AA11, D36, X1, and with the goddess determinative C10. Now, the goddess determinative here is a little special because usually goddess determinatives do not have the feather sticking out. But because C10 is a hieroglyph that is used on its own, it is also used in the reference of the word and name Ma'at. J.P. Allen talks about Ma'at in his book concerning Egyptian hieroglyphics, and that is on page 147 for his essay on Ma'at. So he refers to Ma'at as an abstract noun that is derived from the verb ma'a, meaning direct or guide. The hieroglyph AA11 used in Ma'at's name is a reflection of the worldview that the Egyptians had concerning Maat. AA11 is a base on which an object such as a throne or a statue could stand. And so this comes to represent Ma'at as a sort of base for society as a whole. Now, the exact pronunciation of the word Ma'at is obviously subject to a lot of debate. I have recently been trying to study phonetics, as some of you might know, since I'm trying to recreate or reconstruct certain hymns and words in ancient Egyptian. So the basic thing to know about the pronunciation of Ma'at is that you can pronounce it Ma'at. It's the Egyptological way of pronouncing it, and it's absolutely fine. That is what most people will recognize it as, or just Mat. Ma'at or Mat is just the way that people are going to know it as. But the way it might have been pronounced in the past would probably be closer to Mulat or something like that. I'm not very good at pronouncing it, but I'll put the IPA up for you to see, and then you can look at that on your own time. And then, of course, that would have changed throughout the eras to be more like Mula or Ma'a. And then finally at the end, when you lose the T and the middle part becomes softer, I don't remember what exactly that's called in the phonetics terminology, but it becomes more like Ma'a or something like that. Again, I'm not an absolute expert on phonetics, it's just what I've read from other people's study on what Ma'at would have been pronounced as. Ma'a in general is a very interesting concept because it's the root of a lot of different words and concepts in Egyptian. The ancient Egyptians were very fond of puns and of wordplay, and so one of the things that I really like about the word ma'at is that as a root word, the ma'a without the feminine but the feminine pronoun of t at the end, it means see. And so what I find fascinating is that the act of seeing is so important because being able to see means being able to clarify the truth for yourself and being able to perceive for yourself. And so through that, you are able to recognize and enact ma'at. And so the action of seeing is connected to the action of truth, cosmic balance, and harmony. Something that a lot of beginner comedics ask about is, how do I enact Ma'at? How is this something that I can do? Historically, the act of Ma'at was mainly or largely in reference to the pharaoh, because the pharaoh enacted it on a countrywide level. The gods enacted it on a cosmic level. But us, as regular citizens, obviously not having that pharaoh status, we can enact Ma'at on a civilian level, which is to engage in our community in loving and friendly and understanding ways. It's to be able to help people and be generous, but not in a way that hurts ourselves. On a cosmic level, Ma'at represents the balance and changing as well of for example, the seasons in their natural order, night and day, in each generation being succeeded by the next generation. On a governmental level, it refers to the balance and order of governmental affairs. Maintaining Ma'at on a governmental level is more about keeping enemies at bay, making sure the officials you appoint are just and honorable, and they would settle disputes between towns and nomes and cities and people. They would manage the national grain supply so that people wouldn't go hungry, and things like this. And they would also give offerings to temples to appease the gods. And so that's maintaining Ma'at on a governmental level. J.P. Allen also references a line from the coffin text that says, "I made every man like his fellow," which is said by the Demiurge, the creator of the established universe. And a lot of people have taken this to mean that, every single man is equal. This is what the Egyptians thought. But it's not actually what the Egyptians thought. They didn't think that the rich man should become like the poor man. In fact, they reference this as a sign of Isfet taking over. Instead, what they thought is that the rich man should take care of the poor man, be generous in his given station, and that everyone belongs to their own sects of the world, but they should act in a way that is befitting of that is helpful towards society as a whole. A really good place to start when you're trying to learn how Ma'at is enacted and what you can do to preserve Ma'at in the universe, to preserve the order of things, is to look at the writings of the sage Ptahhotep, who lived supposedly in the Old Kingdom and during the 6th dynasty. There is some debate about whether Ptahhotep was a real person or if the writings were attributed to him correctly, or if they were actually written in the Middle Kingdom. But either way, it is a very good example of what the ancient people of Egypt would have done to enact Ma'at. He talks lots and lots about what to do in order to enact Ma'at. One of my favorite translations of Ptahhotep is by Christian Jacq, and fortunately it has been translated into English because originally he translated it into French. Here's the book. On Maxim 5, he talks about on the art of being a leader while respecting the rule, and the rule here refers to Ma'at. And so we'll skip to the part that talks more about the rule. Great is Ma'at. Its effect on both great and small is complete and long-lasting. The rule is illuminating and practical and has not been changed since the time of Osiris. It is wrong to say, I want only to take things to enrich myself, rather than, I want my actions to benefit the position entrusted to me. Whenever anything reaches its due term, it is Ma'at which endures, and a just man must acknowledge the domain of his spiritual father. The spiritual father here being a teacher. In Maxim 19, he talks about greed, which he calls an incurable sickness. If you want to behave well, free yourself from the grip of all evil and fight any sign of greed. Greed is an incurable, fatal sickness with no remedy. Greed is the coming together of all kinds of evil and contains everything that is hateful. A man can be balanced only if he follows the rule of Ma'at properly and treads his path correctly. He must reckon up his wealth with no sense of greed. Maxim 27 talks about the energy that a great man uses, and great man refers to here anyone who has a power or responsibility, usually to take care of people or livestock, or even grain. But I find the most interesting part of this maxim in relation to understanding Ma'at to be at the very end, where he says, above all, it is the love you inspire that lives on in the hearts of those who value you. You see, the creative energy, or the Ka, ceaselessly longs to understand. The concept of the Ka is something for another video because it's a very complicated thing that, again, changed over the years like most things in ancient Egypt. But I think it's a very good line to understand some of those concepts. Ptahhotep makes a lot of comments on what you should and shouldn't do in accordance with the laws of Ma'at. And I would say that the majority of them, if not all of them, are very, very sound advice, even for the modern era. And so if you want to look more into that, I would very much suggest getting pretty much any translation of Ptahhotep. There are a couple available online for free. But in general, Ma'at is holding a balance inside of you, and it's holding that harmony in kindness and understanding towards yourself and towards others. And so the best way to enact Ma'at, in my opinion, is just to be kind to yourself and to others and within reason. That's the thing about Ma'at. People often take things to extremes, and I notice this a lot where people are like, well, I want to be kind, so I'm kind to everyone, and so I'm kind even to people who hurt me and people who have done damage to me, who haven't apologized or made any work to make their behavior better. And I've also seen people who are so mad at the world and everything that's been happening lately that they're just mean to basically everyone because they kind of assume the worst. But the thing is that that's why Ma'at is so valuable these days, in my opinion, is because it advises balance. And so there's a balance between being kind and being stern with yourself and with others. And so I think Ma'at is something that a lot of modern people should look into today, whether or not you're interested in Egypt or not, or whether or not you're interested in Kemeticism. It's a wonderful concept, and I think it deserves a lot more thought and a lot more recognition than we as a population give it today. So thank you for watching my hopefully short little video on the concept of Ma'at as both a goddess and a concept in general. I know it was pretty short, but I just wanted to give a little introduction and hopefully inspire people to read a little bit more, especially Ptahhotep and different Egyptologists' studies onto what Ma'at is. I'll probably dive more into what Ma'at is in a video about Isfet, because the two are pretty intrinsically intertwined. But until then, thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing if you do.